remember our first book. And I'll talk both in terms of books and courses, but for us, it was really the book. And still to this day, I go through the airport, and every time I go through the airport, I stop at the bookstore, and I'm always like, picturing books there. And now I actually think about which of you are going to have a book there, like who's going to be the first Brand Builders Group client that we have where it's like their book is on the shelf. And that's really exciting to me. But there was something about that for me. I was like, this would be amazing. And what you have to understand is that at the time that I first had that thought, I was probably maybe like 24 years old. And so the idea of being like a New York Times bestselling author back then seemed like the most impossible thing. Like I probably felt like it was as likely to become president as to be a New York Times bestselling author. It was that kind of a gap in my mind. But it seemed like it would be awesome. And so what happened was we started looking at these books. And I remember I went one day to Barnes & Noble and I took all of these these books off the shelf, right? So I took 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and Unleash the Power Within, or Awaken the Giant Within, from Tony Robbins, and all different books from all these different authors. And I was just looking at them. And I was trying to figure out, like, what do these books have in common? Like, why are they so successful? And as I was flipping through them, one of the things that I noticed in the acknowledgments, which nobody ever reads, right? You never look at the acknowledgments. While I was looking at the acknowledgments, several of these books said, I'd like to thank my literary agent, blankety blank. And it was the same woman's name. And I was like, well, that's interesting. That of all the books in the world, like of all the ones that make it here onto like this shelf at this status, this one woman's name is like in the acknowledgments several times. And so it was like, okay, this is the person that we need. This is like business book, author, bestseller. And so we go to her website, it's like Google it. I'm tired of this is like, stalking and checking them out and everything. And you go to their website and it says on the homepage, not accepting author submissions. Right there. So we create a book proposal and we send it to them. We hear no response. Okay? Probably a few weeks go by, send it to them again. Then we're calling their office. Nobody's answering. Could not get a response. This went on for a while. We would kind of call and email, and that probably went on for like 3 or 4 months. But I was convinced that this woman was who we needed. So what happened was I booked a plane flight to Dallas, where their office was, and I had no idea what time she might get there. So I went to their office at 4 in the morning.
Wow.
And I sat in front of their office door at 4 a.m. because I thought maybe if I catch her on the way in, I could like get a minute with this woman. And the day that I was there, she was out of town. So she was not there at the office, which was not awesome. I never really considered that as a possibility. But another woman named Nina, who was kind of like one of the younger agents at the time, she came up, and it's weird, right? Like, who's this guy that looked like Chachi from Happy Days sitting outside of our door with this book proposal? And so I was like, hey, I'm just here and I want to write a book and I have this proposal and I think you guys would be great and I know you work, you don't work with people like me. And she looked at it and she was really nice. And she told me, she said, I really like you. And she goes, I know exactly who you are because you won't stop calling our office. And she said, here's what I want you to know. I like you a lot, but we could never work with you because your platform isn't big enough. And I didn't even know what that meant. And she said, these are good ideas, but they're not flushed out and your platform isn't really big enough. And I said, okay, well, just tell me what to do and I'll do whatever. And so she said this. So she gave me a bunch of stuff to do and she said, I'll make you a deal. I will look over your book proposal and I will call you back, and I will give you my thoughts on the proposal if you promise to stop calling us. So I was like, deal, done. So she took it, and then it was probably like 2 months later, I get this email. We were in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time, and it's late at night, probably 10 o'clock at night, and she says, one line, just in the subject line, do you still want my advice? And I was like, yes. Emailed her right back, and she goes, give me your number, I'll call you right now. So she calls me, and for 2 hours, shreds my proposal. Just, this sucks, and that sucks, and this would never work, and that won't work, but in a nice way, and in the nicest way possible. And then she reminds me, again, in the nicest way possible, we could never work with you, please stop calling. So I took all of her feedback, all of her suggestions, over the next month or something, made those edits, so then I started calling her back, right? So I sent it back to her, and I'm calling her, and no response, just complete darkness. I think at one point we sent a fax machine, and then AJ comes up with this idea. Do you want to tell him what your idea was? This is this instant package, okay? So we had a friend that did this.
I can't really take credit for it. I just did.
Yeah, it was an idea that one of our friends, one of our business partners at the time.
I just went to the grocery store.
But she's like, we should actually do this. So we go to the grocery store, and we buy all of these instant things. Instant coffee, and instant oatmeal, and instant pudding, and like popcorn, and like all this instant stuff. And then we put it into a box with a note that says, hopefully by using these products, you'll get an extra few minutes in your schedule to review our revised book proposal. So we send this package to her. She calls us back the next day. She's like, that was super creative. I'll tell you what, I'll give it another look. So she's like, she looks at it. She's like, I'll call you back. But she's like, I don't want to lead you on. We just can't work with you. Your ideas aren't mature enough. Your platform's not big enough. So we do that. She sends us back some comments or whatever. And then after that, we literally couldn't get her to call us back for like 6 or 8 months. And then I do a speaking engagement one day. And after this speaking gig, a guy comes up to me and he says, Rory, I really think you have what it takes to make it in this industry. And I was like, okay, thanks, man. Like, appreciate it. And he goes, no, you don't understand. I'm the CEO of Andy Andrews. And if you don't know Andy Andrews, he has written several New York Times bestsellers. One of them, The Traveler's Gift, has sold millions of copies. The Noticer also sold millions of copies. And he said, here's what I want you to do. I want you and AJ to come over to my house, and I'm going to show you everything that we do. And he says, I want to help you. So we go to his house, and he showed us his book proposal, the book proposal that they had used, and immediately it clicked, like, oh, this is what everyone is talking about. Now tomorrow morning, I'm going to show you ours. I'm going to show you our book proposal from the first book. Right? After you do the first book and you break through Sheehan's wall and stuff, it's a lot easier. But that first one is like really, really challenging. So I'm going to show it to you. So he gave us some coaching. We sent it to her. So this is 3 days. We had 12 publishers review that proposal. There was a bidding war. And then they got to where they were, they're bidding on the proposal, and we sold it. And then we had something that we did not have a lot of that you really need, which is money. And so then we had the money, and then we took all the money and we invested it into the launch plan, which is a whole separate thing that we'll talk about later. But that proposal, and then if you look at major New York publishers, which again, I know some of you, this isn't on your radar, you don't care about it, it's fine. But the process of going through that is what made me a writer. It is what, not just a writer, a content creator. It helped me understand the way that you have to think and do all this and tie it together with a platform, something that can scale and reach and have your ideas spread. And that's what we're going to walk you through.